F124 Driver Career Mode, round number 7 of Season 1. It is the Monaco Grand Prix. It's time to go racing in Monaco for the first time on F124. I don't know what to feel like going into this one because Monaco is almost always a boring race in this game. So let's see how it goes in this one with DRS trains and all that sorts of stuff like that we seem to be getting in this game. I feel like it's gonna be no different to usual. Looking at R&D, and we have actually now, oh no, we're still ahead of Ferrari and Mercedes, but only just, we're just right there. And yeah, McLaren and Red Bull still very, very close to the top, and pretty much everybody else in a big cluster behind, as you can see. So fairly big gaps there, but there are teams all over the grid very close to each other. So we get into Q1 here in Monaco. Now, I like Monaco. I like driving Monaco. It's definitely intense for sure. There's no margin for error, and even in this game, it is quite fun to drive. And in qualifying especially, yeah, it's good. It is good to get your car really whipping around. I seem to struggle with these kind of tighter corners quite a bit more in this game than I have in previous games. I just didn't feel like the car really had quite the turning circle that it does in other games, but maybe that's just me, my setup, or whatever it was, I don't know. But we do manage to get through Q1 there in P10. No massive surprises out. Maybe Daniel Ricciardo down in P17, not getting through even to Q2 in the RB after being in pretty sure being in Q3 for the last 2 rounds, and of course scored that P5 in the sprint in China a couple of rounds ago. So for him to be out in Q1 is a little bit of a surprise. But yeah, the RB, I mean, all those, pretty much everybody from, you know, the top 5 teams of Red Bull, McLaren, Aston Martin, Mercedes and Ferrari are all very close to each other. And then, although, you know, you've kind of got Red Bull and McLaren at the top, a bit of a gap to the other 3, and then the other 5 teams are all pretty much right on top of each other at the bottom of the pile. So it's all very, very close there. Q2, and we actually go quickest by a bit under a tenth of a second from Verstappen, and Alonso's up there in P3 as well. So good pace showing for our car this race actually, which I was a little bit surprised about. The AI difficulty calculator put my difficulty quite a bit lower than I have in recent races. Last couple of races I've been around the 100 mark. Only 91 for this race. I guess it is quite a difficult track, and I maybe didn't have the best... although I enjoy Monaco, driving around Monaco, not necessarily the race, but I enjoy driving around the track of Monaco. It is probably one of my weaker tracks just on general pace, because it is quite a tough track. And on this game where the rear wheels seem to skid up quite a bit more out of corners than in previous games, that maybe has an effect on it as well. And yeah, it is one of the more difficult tracks, let's just say that. But yeah, 91 difficulty, pretty much the lowest I've ran the difficulty since the start of the season, where, you know, the difficulty probably wasn't really quite correct. But yeah, as we bounce over the curbs through the swimming pool section into Raskas, had a little bit of a tag on the wall actually through there, but thankfully no issues. Had real issues around that final corner. You know, you just get on power a little bit too soon, or just hit that bump on the left, and it will, you know, you'll spin the car around. But we ended up getting our first ever pole position here in Monaco. It's P1 for us, and the top 3 are within a tenth. It's almost within, you know, the top 6 are within 0.2 of a second. So close. It's me and Carlos Sainz on the front row. What a lap from us. Fernando Alonso's down there in P6. It's looking close. McLaren in 9 and 10. That's a bit surprising. So I have to see what this race has in store, but we're starting for pole position for the first time in F124. So let's see what we can do in this race.
Formula One returns to Monte Carlo once again today, home to the world-famous Monte Carlo Casino that first opened in 1863. And of course, a certain road race first held in 1929. There's no greater an occasion, no more valuable a win than the Monaco Grand Prix. The prestigious Circuit de Monaco, then, is not all that dissimilar today to the layout that made its debut almost a century ago. It's 2 miles and 19 corners through the streets of Monte Carlo. And although the average lap speed of around 93 miles per hour is the lowest of the season, the tiny margins for error make it the natural habitat of the safety car. It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Shaw lines up on pole position. And the smooth operator Carlos Sainz completes the front row. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Russell, Verstappen, Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, Leclerc, Perez, Norris, Oscar Piastri, Tsunoda, Ocon, Gasly, Hulkenberg, Joe, Magnussen, Ricciardo, Albon, Bottas, and Logan Sargent. Now it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track.
Alright, it's time to get underway for the 2024 Monaco Grand Prix from pole position. 5 red lights are out, and it is initially an alright start from us, but Sainz gets an absolutely electric start, and he's already around the outside and past us into turn 1. So on the track, that starting from pole is the main thing, and staying in front at turn 1 is the big thing. We have lost P1 right at the start of this race to Carlos Sainz. You can see we're starting on the mediums. A few other drivers starting on the hard compound. You can see Russell and Verstappen behind me now, starting on the hard compound of tyres. So that could be interesting. A real mix of medium and hard compound tyres for this one. I felt like, I mean, the game gave me the medium compound just as a default setup, and with Sainz also on the mediums, I thought I have to go mediums or else I'm for sure gonna lose the lead off the start. But it didn't matter anyway, although I guess if we started on the hards we may have been even further down the order. But as you can see at the start of this race, Sainz already pretty much got a second gap to me. He is flying through this first lap after that electric start, and as we head into Rasgas for the first time, another 39 times, well 38 times I guess, to go around there as we come around the final corner. Like I said, a little bit of oversteer, very sketchy there sometimes. We finish lap number 1, and yeah, the gap about 8.5 seconds, well sorry, 8.5 tenths of a second to Sainz, and we'll have a look on board with Carlos Sainz at his start here. He just gets a great launch around the outside and is pretty much past us by turn 1. We have a little bit of a nose there, but not enough to really, justify any room, and he will get ahead. And as you can see by lap 3, he's now over a second ahead of us with the fastest lap as well, although we've gone quickest in Sector 1. Sector 1 was where we seem to be really doing quite well, and I think throughout the race, Sector 2 was my weakest sector. Sector 3 was okay, but it was mainly Sector 1, I guess, using a lot of ERS probably uphill and down the front straight. George Russell would be sitting in 3rd place, the first of the hard compound runners. He was ahead of Verstappen. Of course, Verstappen leading this championship and has won most races this season. But currently, it was George Russell in P3 on that hard compound strategy, so that could play into their hands. I don't really know. He's managing to stay with us relatively well. I think he's outside a second as we now go to lap number 8, and yeah, he's 2.4 seconds behind me, so he's dropping back a little bit, but he is on those hard tyres, so it is to be expected. We kind of stayed at this 1.2 second margin to Sainz for quite a while, and still at this point here, not really catching him as we get a little bit of a wiggle as we head into the hairpin. But eventually, lap number 10, we've now pretty much caught to the back of him, or is this, yeah, this is Sainz. We have now caught up to the back of Carlos Sainz. You can then see the gap there to the next 3 behind of Russell, Verstappen and Alonso. Alonso is on the medium tyres like us, so he's potentially losing out here, getting caught behind those 2 hard tyre runners. But Sainz, I mean, this is Monaco, remember. It is nigh on impossible, whatever you want to say, to overtake around here. So for now, we are stuck behind, even though we have gained a bit more time on him. Verstappen, like I said before, is in this, it's not really a train, it's only 3 cars, but he's behind Russell, the second of the drivers on the hard compound tyres. You'll see we're on lap 13, and we pretty much haven't had any overtakes yet, other than that overtake into turn 1. There was a few other changes around in the order, but on the most part, yeah, not a lot of overtaking here because it is Monaco, and just like always with these F1 games, Monaco very rarely produces a good race. Lap 17, as you can see, we're really starting to hamper Sainz now, but you'll also notice that Russell and Verstappen have also pretty much caught up to us now. just about within a second. Alonso's a little bit further back on the mediums, but this is at the point where the hards are now starting to become the better tyre, and you can see it is now very close, all the way back from Sainz down to Hamilton in, I believe that is 6th. Lap 17 though, and we're going to be the first man into the pits for our stop onto a set of hard compound tyres. It's an okay pit stop. Seemed a little bit slow. I think it was like a 2.9 second pit stop, so, or a 2.8 or something. It wasn't massively quick, but it wasn't a really slow one either. Actually, for one of the first times, I only got a good, you know, pit entry instead of expert, like excellent, perfect. I only got good for some reason. I don't know why. I thought I clicked it at the same time I usually did, but I only got a good apparently. But we come out behind Gasly and Hulkenberg, and as Gasly comes into the pits on lap 18, this is also when the cars around us were also coming into the pits, or at least Sainz I think is coming into the pits, and there he is coming out of the pit lane, and as we get through turn 1 he's going to be alongside, but we're going to get ahead. So we've now essentially gotten ourselves into the net race leader of this race. It's P7 at the moment, but we're now ahead of Sainz, who was leading the race. Hulkenberg is the car in front of us. He's on the hard compound tyres. He hasn't pitted yet. We're going to try and make a move down the inside into the chicane, but he doesn't give us any room, and we don't really give him room because there just isn't room to give there. So he cuts across the chicane. A little bit cheeky, but I guess what else was he supposed to do in that situation? So we really need to try and get past Hulkenberg as quick as we can. Pierre Gasly, though, is not having a good time, sitting down in P16, and his engine has gone up in smoke, and he is going to be the first retirement of this Monaco Grand Prix on lap 20. Lap 22 a couple of laps later, and we're sizing up a move on Hulkenberg again. This seemed to be the place to do it, into the chicane out of the tunnel. This time we're a lot more alongside, but once again Hulkenberg just does not give in, and I just cannot get past him. He just cuts the chicane and I can't get past, and it's getting a little bit ridiculous, as now we see up ahead that's Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, who have come into the pits off the hard tyre onto the mediums, and they have jumped us, they have overcut us in the pits because we've been stuck behind Hulkenberg for this such a long amount of time. We have another look to the inside, but Hulkenberg locks up and manages to keep his car ahead, though. It doesn't cut the chicane this time. That lockup almost helped him out there. We just looked from the off-board camera there because I thought it looked pretty spectacular with Hulkenberg locking up. But we're still stuck behind him. We've lost position to Verstappen, Hamilton, and also George Russell, who I think is coming into the pitch. You can see him there, bottom left. So I imagine we're going to come out behind him as well, because he was ahead of Verstappen and Hamilton at the point in time. As we head around the final corner, Hulkenberg finally comes into the pits, but it's too little too late as we come into turn 1. George Russell, he's now dropped down to P3. It's now Verstappen. Out of all this, he qualified in like 4th. He wasn't looking at leading this race at any point, but all of a sudden, Max Verstappen, as it always kind of works out, has found himself in the lead of this race. Verstappen leads the Monaco Grand Prix with the 2 Mercedes of Hamilton and Russell behind him, and we are down to P4. So we go from potentially being leading and winning this race to not even on the podium. So things have taken a turn here, and it was all because of getting stuck behind Hulkenberg and just not being able to overtake, and him just putting up a really stout defense. A few laps later, and you can see we're actually starting to pull away from Sainz here. Once I was in the free air, I had quite a bit of pace and just was really pushing it, but you can see top right there, like I was saying before, first sector green, second sector yellow, and I think the third sector would be another green, but it was that second sector where I just didn't seem to be making time. And these guys ahead were, well, not these guys, because this is Sergio Perez, who is behind me in a battle with Alonso and Sainz. He's on the medium compound tyres as well, but you know, it's not really going to work out for him because nobody can overtake in Monaco. Carlos Sainz, P5, like I said, he's dropped back from me a little bit. You can still see me up the road, but oh no, it looks like a retirement. It looks like yes, it is. It's a lot of smoke from Carlos Sainz. His second engine failure of the season. He had an engine failure in China, in the Chinese Grand Prix sprint race. He now has another engine retirement here in the Monaco Grand Prix main race. The 2 McLarens go past. Weirdly though, I've not seen this before. He actually carries on for about half a lap, maybe a bit more than half a lap here, as one of the Tsunoda in the RB clatters into the back of him, breaks his front wing. Didn't cause a safety car or anything, but Sainz eventually pulls up in the tunnel. His car obviously just completely conking out. I've never seen that before where, you know, an AI, and we see him here. Look, he's in such a strange place there. I've never seen it where an AI has an engine failure, but doesn't just pull over instantly. They literally drive the car until it completely conks out. So that's very interesting, but a poor race there for Sainz. It's been a good race for Mercedes though, as Hamilton and Russell on track together here are going to come home for a double podium finish, second and third for the Mercedes drivers, but it will be Max Verstappen who will win this Monaco Grand Prix. But a Mercedes 2-3, it's going to be P4 for us in the end, thanks to Hulkenberg. If it wasn't for getting stuck behind Hulkenberg, we probably would have won this race. We probably would have won this race if we didn't get stuck behind Hulkenberg, but I just couldn't get past. In the end, it's P4, and it's both the Aston Martins together, as Alonso finishes P5, about 3.5 seconds behind me. So all in all, not a terrible points haul for the team. You know, still 22 points for this race, but it's another Max Verstappen win here in Monaco for Red Bull.
The checkered flag is out. We're going to be hearing that Dutch national anthem again, because it's victory for Max Verstappen.
Well, are we looking at a champion in waiting today, Crofty, with that kind of performance? They were driving with the kind of lack of pressure that you quite often see when a driver knows, they just know within themselves that that championship is within their reach.
The drivers are en route to the podium as we speak. What a fantastic win for the Red Bull team. They performed exceptionally today, keeping us firmly on the edge of our seats throughout the entirety of the race. Congratulations to everybody at the team.
Yes, it's another win for Max Verstappen. He extends his lead at the top of the drivers' standings. We'll see that in a bit. But, yeah, I mean, he started in 4th. It's almost, you know, well, it's kind of the opposite of what happened with Charles Leclerc in 2022, was it? Where he got pole but ended up finishing 4th. Verstappen qualifies 4th and ends up winning the race. And the two Mercedes will be very happy with the double podium. Probably a little bit sad that they didn't get the win. Maybe if they pitted Russell when they pitted Hamilton, you know, pitted Russell instead of Hamilton, because he was the driver ahead, Russell probably would have won this race, but unfortunately they didn't, and Russell ended up dropping down to P3. So pretty unfortunate for him. And yeah, P4 and P5 for us. It's a good result for the team for sure. But yeah, we should have won that race without getting stuck behind Hulkenberg. No real surprise anywhere else. I mean, McLaren only P8 and P9, did not have the performance this weekend, and of course, you know, bad qualifying, and then it's Monaco, so they can't really overtake anyone. In the Drivers' Championship, Verstappen now extends his lead over myself to 44 points. Drivers are catching up to me a little bit now. I don't expect to finish second by the end of this season. It's really too high for where this car is, but in saying that, you know, the Mercedes is actually a little bit slower than us now apparently, and Hamilton's there in 3rd with Alonso still hanging on to 4th, and in the constructors we are 23 points behind Red Bull, as yeah, now Fernando Alonso's putting in some good performances, but Sergio Perez still not doing quite what he should be at Red Bull to, you know, capitalize on that those constructors points. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.